Hello and welcome to the Business and AI podcast. And today we will look at chapter 14 and 15 of our book. We are getting to the very last chapter, which is chapter 16, and that we will take in the next episode, which will be the last episode for this book. So this is going to be a very short podcast, and this is because um everything in chapter 14 we have talked about little by little in previous chapters. Chapter 14 is titled Reality Check. So, in the previous episode where we talked about the myths, AI myths, and all that, so this chapter just glosses over all of them all together. So, chapter 14 debunks myths about AI's limitless capabilities, and it exposes its inherent biases and limitations. For example, when AI is asked to generate news headlines about recent political events, the AI produced language that reinforced existing stereotypes and ideological leanings. And this clearly shows that even neutral machines can perpetuate this bias when fed biased input. Also, when it's asked to create a portrait of a visionary leader, instead of producing a nuanced, diverse image, the system churns out a very generic white male likeness. Lucky them. Anyway, so this explains that, the AI didn't just decide to generate that. Instead, it's generating all these images based upon its data, which has historical and cultural biases all built up in it. Um, so moving on to chapter 15, we take a look at the global perspective on the challenges of regulating AI. The author highlights the tension between the rapid pace of technological innovation and the slower, often reactive nature of government regulation. She provides a vivid account of policy debates, describing, for example, how the EU is drafting an AI Act aimed at curbing potential harms while still allowing innovations to flourish. One example the author shares is of a tech company, Microsoft, taking proactive steps to self regulate by publishing model cards for its AI systems. These cards detail how models are trained, data used, and even the measures taken to mitigate bias. But while this is applaudable, it's transparent and all that, the author questions whether self regulation alone is sufficient. She brings up the story of a pilot program in Scandinavia where regulators, academics, and industry leaders come together to test agile, adaptive policy frameworks. This collaborative effort underscores the idea that effective AI governance must be dynamic and globally coordinated. The author also discussed the geopolitical dimensions of AI governance. Um, she explains how different regions, say EU with its cautious risk-averse approach and the Silicon Valley's innovation-driven culture, are developing divergent strategies. This divergence could lead to a fragmented global regulatory landscape, which might complicate international trade and cooperation. Talking about divergent strategies, the author recounts a telling scene where European regulators are shown working meticulously on what will become the EU's AI Act. She paints a picture of lengthy consultations and cautious incremental changes intended to shield citizens from potential harms. In contrast, she highlights a parallel narrative in the US where tech giants like Microsoft and Google are forging ahead, often with the backing of politicians who argue that too much regulation could stifle innovation. The author then connects these divergent strategies to broader global trends. She explains that while EU leaders emphasize a safe, secure model with strict safeguards, the US prefers to let the market innovate, with regulators stepping in only as a last resort. This isn't just academic. Recently, the VP JD at the Paris AI Summit warned that overly cautious policies could dampen innovation, contrasting sharply with the EU's measured but stricter approach. So, moving on to our last segment, actionable insights from this chapter, relevance as of today, will all be built into the reflection questions. So, we have three reflection questions, and the first one is: how can you, in your professional or personal life, help bridge the gap between rapid AI innovation and the need for thoughtful, effective regulation? So, basically, what how can you play your own small little part, even as an individual, and contributing to ethical AI? Our second question for reflection is: what steps could your organization take to ensure that the benefits of AI are distributed fairly while mitigating risks like bias and job displacement? And the third question for reflection is: how might different regulatory approaches around the world impact the future of the global technology market, and what roles should local voices like yours and mine play in that conversation? So, we are at the end of our episode today, and in the next episode, which is like the grand finale, we'll be looking at chapter 16. That's the last chapter, and I'll catch you on this next episode, on this next last episode.